So, critical reception towards Wish was bad. I'm not here to passionately defend this movie. It's neither a great work of art nor a cinematic disaster worthy of hatred and ire. Personally, I think Zootopia is the more rage-inducing flick, but that video essay already exists over on my Patreon.
You are so disappointing on so many levels.
Wish was designed to be inoffensive, and this lack of ambition prompted an ironically strong emotional response from audience members. Negative reviews are a dime a dozen, and their critiques are not invalid. Wish's plot is boring, its characters are derivative, the animation is lackluster, and some of the songs are utterly abysmal.
You really wanna know just who you are?
You're a star! Yes!
The vast majority of Wish's problems stem back to the unenviable task assigned to the product at its conception. It's supposed to commemorate the 100th year of Disney Animation's existence. This fact superseded all the other essential elements of filmmaking. Characters became vessels for fairy tale references rather than tools to drive the narrative. Marketing focused more on the studio's name and the very idea of this celebration instead of pitching Wish as an actually good movie you should want to see based on its own creative merits. Behind-the-scenes material only served to further highlight its wasted potential. The final product is underwhelming because it was essentially doomed from the start.
I'm talking! I am talking! Ah, who knew my voice would be this low?
I managed to escape the bulk of this collective disappointment. Disney has in fact made some of my favorite movies, but I didn't grow up with this company in the same way my peers did. My childhood nostalgia is tied to a far more disastrous production studio. As a result, my expectations were low to begin with, so I was able to have some fun with Wish. I kind of liked Asha's Seven Dwarf-inspired friend group.
Bye! Don't get your hopes up!
Star is indeed a toy marketing ploy, and my friend Matt fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Alan Tudyk is one of my favorite Firefly alums, so watching him descend further and further into madness is always a real treat.
I went to Juilliard.
I also loved Ariana DeBose's performance. She's one of the few things I unironically enjoy about the West Side Story remake, and she imbues Asha with a ton of charm despite this script's dearth of substance.
The stars are there to guide us, to inspire us, to remind us to believe in possibility.
I'm not interested in this film's conventional shortcomings. To dwell on these issues would be a blatant waste of everyone's time. Thematic analysis is what compels me as both a viewer and critic. When consuming a piece of media, I like to ask how the broader humanities can be applied to a narrative. Subjects such as history, philosophy, sociology, and psychology all play a crucial role in our daily lives, whether or not we're conscious of their impact. In my opinion, the best works of fiction actively engage with these disciplines and integrate them into their themes. This approach isn't without its flaws, but it helps me gauge a work's overall quality. Even if a story is subpar, we can still learn from its failures by applying this analytical lens and dissecting the apparent dissonance. The resulting problems are often multi-layered and intertwined. For example, Wish is philosophically discordant because its protagonist is naive to the greater mechanisms of history.
Can't you just give them back instead?
Excuse me?
The wishes you're not going to grant, you could just give them back.
Asha has an unflappably optimistic worldview. According to her, people are good, wishes are good, ergo, people's wishes are good. This particular belief is repeatedly demonstrated to us through her unshakable faith in Saba Sabino. She isn't concerned with the vagueness of his wish because she personally knows that her grandfather is not a bad person.
My Saba would never do anything to hurt anyone.
You think that?
I know that.
Well, you're young. You don't know anything, really.
Asha's opinions align with the philosophical stance of humanism, which is defined as an outlook or system of thought attaching prime importance to humans rather than divine or supernatural matters. It also emphasizes the potential value and goodness of human beings whilst positing the importance of an individual's autonomy, as well as our moral obligation to advocate for other people. Asha loves Rosas and its citizens. She's enamored with the idealistic narrative espoused by the king and queen. If you surrender your wish for protection, then one day, it might just be granted.
You can turn all you want into wishing no one is and no one does.
After her interview with the king takes a sour turn, Asha becomes disillusioned with the entire system. She sees all of the wishes as holistically positive and can't understand why Magnifico won't grant Saba Sabinos.
Your Saba longs to create something to inspire the next generation. Great wish, but too vague. Create what? A rebellious mob, perhaps?
Herein lies the first crack in Wish's weak philosophy. Magnifico is ostensibly correct. In his infamous pamphlet Common Sense, Thomas Paine writes, "Government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil. It is the badge of lost innocence. For were the impulses of conscience clear, uniform, and irresistibly obeyed, man would need no other lawgiver. But that not being the case, he finds it necessary to surrender up a part of his property to furnish means for the protection of the rest. Government is, at its core, a transactional service that requires personal sacrifices. Sabino himself understands this brutal truth."
What gives him the right to decide?
He is the king, and he has made everything possible for us.
This isn't to say that Asha doesn't have a right to be disgusted. A government will always prioritize protecting itself over the well-being of its constituents, in which case activism naturally takes root. The struggle for human rights is ever ongoing. Progress isn't made by asking nicely, but accepted historical narratives will prop up quote-unquote peaceful protesters and villainize overtly disruptive individuals because bureaucracies prefer not to be criticized. Rebels are often chastised for pursuing their liberation through supposedly incorrect means, but a society's stance on morality is ultimately filtered through a sanitized lens that's endorsed by its own government. Violent protesters are condemned by the very system that oppresses them. Never forget that Stonewall was a riot, that the civil rights movement was an organized resistance campaign defined by disobedience, that university students have every right to protest the ongoing war their government is sanctioning. Wish falls short of saying anything interesting here because it refuses to authentically engage with this topic's duality. After the dust settles, Amaya is still Rosas's queen. This narrative choice unintentionally reveals something interesting. The movie is neither pro-monarchy nor anti-monarchy. It is merely pro-Asha and anti-Magnifico.
Huh, likely story.
Wait, the king was acting awfully awful.
This stance feels unsatisfying because anyone who's ever worked in customer service knows that humanity has the capacity to be completely irredeemable.
Is that all you can think about? A wish-granting ceremony?
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
If Asha is the film's humanist perspective, then Magnifico is the anti-humanist who is critical of our protagonist's idealism. He experienced great loss at the hands of greedy individuals, so his desire to protect the wishes is rooted in personal history. Rosas became a beacon of hope for people because Magnifico designed it to be as such.
Everything I do is to make sure that never happens again.
In his book, Straw Dogs, Thoughts on Humans and Other Animals, author John Gray writes, "Most people today think they belong to a species that can be master of its destiny. This is faith, not science. Humans cannot live without illusions. For the men and women of today, an irrational faith in progress may be the only antidote to nihilism. Without the hope that the future will be better than the past, they could not go on." Magnifico wins the love and loyalty of his subjects by nebulously promising them that their wishes might come true. This is an uneven exchange, but an exchange nonetheless.
It is my great pleasure to grant you your heart's desire.
Villainy doesn't suit Magnifico. His fall from grace is haphazardly rushed, and it's easy to presuppose that the book on dark magic is responsible for the bulk of his attitude shift.
Look for anything on how to break his staff, bind his magic, or, at the very least, break the hold it has on him.
The filmmakers refer to him as a narcissist in supplemental content, but that term is often misapplied in modern circles. I myself am actually guilty of this in a previous video. Magnifico is certainly vain, but a true pathological narcissist is incapable of loving another person, and Magnifico clearly loves his wife.
Rosas is so lucky to have you, as am I.
When I say there's something tragic about Magnifico's character, I mean it in the Shakespearean sense. The protagonists of these plays all have fatal flaws, also known as hamartia, the most common of which being pride. Supernatural elements are often present in their bastardization arcs alongside broader themes of fate and fortune. Man's demise is simultaneously preventable and inevitable, an ultimate waste of potential greatness. Though these shared story characteristics were likely unintentional, screenwriter Jennifer Lee alluded to several such parallels during an interview with Screen Rant Plus.
Every choice he makes in this, he could have made other choices. Every time he's challenged, he could go a different way.
I am reminded of Coriolanus. What? No, not the Hunger Games character, the Roman general. Though now that I think about it...
What is to prevent them from doing the same? What is to prevent, say, an uprising that can lead to revolution?
Coriolanus is far from Shakespeare's most popular play. Its obscurity is not due to a lack of quality. The script is as solid as any of his other dramas, but audiences tend to find the play confounding. The story follows an arrogant soldier named Caius Marcius. After defeating the Volscians, the people name him Coriolanus and urge him to run for consul, Rome's highest elected office. Unable to hide his disdain for the common folk and plebeians, Coriolanus is banished by the same citizens he fought to protect.
You come and dry of curs! Whose breath I hate, I banish you!
He then joins the Volscians and marches on Rome alongside his former enemies. Coriolanus' family convinces him to spare the city at the 11th hour, but the Volscians are enraged by this betrayal, so they kill him.
Bummer. Huh? This is a bummer, man.
Theater scholar and essayist Jan Kott wrote extensively about this play in his collection of essays, Shakespeare Our Contemporary. Though this book is over 60 years old, it still makes plenty of pertinent points. Coriolanus annoyed those who believed in the masses and those who despised them, those who recognized the purpose and didactics of history and those who laughed at them, those who saw mankind as a mound of termites and those who only saw lone individual termites painfully experiencing the tragedy of existence. Coriolanus could not please either classicists or romantics. To the former, it seemed incoherent, vulgar, and brutal. To the latter, it was too bitter, flat, and dry. Any of this sound familiar? To further quote Kott, Coriolanus wants the world to recognize his greatness, but the world is divided into plebeians and patricians, and rats have no wish to consider themselves worse than eagles. A traitor's role does not fit Coriolanus. History has declared the plebeians right, but Shakespeare does not admit that history has been right, or at any rate, ultimately right. Coriolanus did not love the people, but this does not mean that Coriolanus should be condemned. In that sentence there is, in a nutshell, the bitter drama of Renaissance humanism, of any humanism, in fact.
All I really want is just a little respect. And this is the thanks I get.
Wish has interesting foundational elements. Asha and Magnifico's conflict could have explored the nuanced philosophical debate between individualism and collectivism. Is society exceptional because of the sacrifices we make on the road to collaboration, or do our individual qualities and pursuits determine a group's true value?
I don't know.
This movie could have been brilliant, but it handicaps itself by pigeonholing its characters into reductive roles. And according to its creators, no role was reduced more than stars.
No. Yes?
Star is the thematic equivalent of opening a cutely wrapped box and finding nothing inside. This emptiness is intrinsically linked to the lack of clarity we receive regarding the nature of wishes. What exactly is a wish? Magnifico says they're the best piece of your heart, but is he speaking metaphorically, spiritually, or literally? Are wishes the intrinsic seed of identity? Do they enable us with free will? Does free will even exist within society? Have we surrendered too much autonomy to evil systems, thus irrevocably dooming ourselves as a species?
I've always thought of Star a little bit like Walt Disney. So Star is really the muse that just kind of encourages and inspires and pushes Asha to pursue her wish.
Oh. In that case, I prefer the star from the Super Mario Brothers movie.
There's no escape. The only hope is the sweet relief of death.
Simon is our best avenue towards a definitive answer. He's the only member of Asha's friend group who is over 18, and the other characters all note how his demeanor changed after he gave Magnifico his wish.
Have I become boring? Do you all think that?
No, not boring, just calmer.
These lines primarily exist to poke fun at Simon's narrative origin. He's an homage to Sleepy the Dwarf, but they also imply that wishes have some sort of intrinsic living energy. This makes sense. A tired populace is less likely to rebel, and boring citizens can easily fit into society's generic mold.
Long live the king!
This observation is simultaneously bolstered and undermined by the fact that Asha is 17. She still has her wish, thus she still has her innate energy. Why then does she need external encouragement from Star?
I don't know.
Damn it, I already used that joke.
I don't know.
The film's climax is perplexingly powerful. It's the culmination of a character arc Asha didn't undergo. She and Magnifico swap philosophical stances in this scene. The king has become a power-hungry monster who's only concerned with himself, whilst Asha sees the collective potential of her assembled people.
Will be greater than all his magic combined.
It's admittedly a cool moment, but it's unintentionally indicative of Disney's larger storytelling problems as of late. There is an apparent unwillingness to make definitive choices, a general absence of thematic confidence. The company's primary goal is to make money. As such, they don't want to alienate certain portions of their audience. But when you seek to please everybody, you don't make anything substantive.
But what am I supposed to do with it?
Be our fairy godmother? I mean, what else?
No.
Art is inherently political. Creation is an act of rebellion. To strive for the status quo is to spit in the face of all the artists who've dared to make a statement. The directors praise Walt Disney for his genius and perpetuate the narrative that he was an exceptional individual, but filmmaking is the most collaborative art form possible. Much of Walt's success can be attributed to his brother Roy, who handled all of the company's business. Asha claims Rosas is full of stars, but our galaxy is cold and isolating. Constellations exist because we created the individual connections, but those stars are still billions of miles away from each other. Our culture insists that we ascribe specific faces to history, but the praise we heap upon these people is misguided. Exceptional individualism mutes the collective's existence, and that's immensely depressing.
That was just too much for me. I am only 3 weeks old after all.
Wish does not lack philosophical ideas. It lacks philosophical conviction, the courage to take a specific stance and craft metaphors that support a clear thesis. Mediocrity is rarely rage-inducing, but the film's tepid theming managed to leave countless people bored at best and dissatisfied at worst.
Love Asha. The love part was my idea. Okay, bye.
That being said, I have a feeling history will be kinder to Wish. Disney hit a similar creative slump in the early 2000s. The works they produced during this decade weren't financially successful, nor were they as impressive as the Renaissance features that preceded them. But an entire generation of kids still grew up watching these movies, and appreciation for these flicks only continues to grow. Lilo and Stitch is beautiful, The Emperor's New Groove is hilarious, and Brother Bear exists. Those kids are adults now, and their kids will likely develop a similar fondness for films like Strange World, Wish, and Raya and the Last Dragon.
Have you ever done like a group project, but there's like that one kid who didn't pitch in as much, but still ended up with the same grade?
We're doomed.
Wish will never be one of my favorite films, but I love overanalyzing it. The creative process is endlessly fascinating to me, and sometimes a below-average story is more compelling to dissect than a cohesive one. It's like deconstructing a puzzle built by another person who didn't have any guiding images to work with. The film may not be transcendent, but we can still show respect to the writers and artists who strived for greatness and fell short. At least they made something that's better than Chicken Little.
Split into 2 teams. Popular versus unpopular.
Coach!
Yeah, unpopular.
Shouldn't we review safety guidelines?
Sure. Hit the pig, kids.